Now that we've talked a little bit about star life and star birth, let's talk about star death. As a reminder, we talked through the first couple of stages of this. I want to make some broad comments about stage C, D, and E before I have you work through some details. So remember from Tuesday in stage C, the red giant phase, you can see the luminosity of the star is getting larger, even though the temperature is actually getting a little bit smaller. And so, what must be happening is that the diameter of the star is becoming much larger during this time. And that means that the outward pressure is larger than the inward pulling gravity. In the core, what's happening is that the core is starting to shrink because hydrogen fusion has ended. It's heating up. That increased heat pushes out the outer layers of the star. But the core keeps shrinking and heating until helium fusion can begin. From D to E, um, the or eventually that from D to E, helium fusion is happening, and at the end of stage D, there's the helium fusion runs out, sort of like hydrogen ran out um, on the main sequence, and from the purple segment of the line, the luminosity is going down, and that means that the diameter of the star, the size of the star, is getting a little bit smaller. And then in the beginning of stage E, the red supergiant phase, helium is run out in the core. The core starts to shrink and heat up. That heat dries out the outer layers of the star. Um, and what happens next depends on what kind of star you have. For a star like our sun, um, a different kind of pressure called degeneracy pressure eventually stops the core from contracting, and so there's no more fusion that happens in the core. For larger stars, more interesting things happen. And then finally, in a star like our sun, what happens is that the outer layers of the star slowly get blown off into space, and you're just left with the hot core of the star. In terms of what makes a star low mass versus high mass, our sun is on the very high end of the low mass stars. Um, the stars which are bigger than 8 times the mass of the sun are definitely large stars and or high mass stars, and in between there's a intermediate zone where um, what happens depends on the details. So you should have the lecture tutorial from Tuesday. There is a link to it just after this video. So spend a few minutes looking at questions 3 and 4 from that, and then there's a couple of questions for you to answer, multiple choice. Keep in mind you have unlimited attempts on these. You will get credit as long as you complete the quiz.